In the basement of every major car manufacturer, there is a file containing certificates of destruction. These are the legal death warrants for prototypes, cars deemed too dangerous, too experimental, or too legally toxic to exist. Usually the story ends in a hydraulic press, but tonight we are tracking the fugitives. These are 5 factory ghosts, cars officially recorded as scrap but smuggled out, hidden behind false walls, or buried in school buses to survive. We aren't just looking at old cars, we're looking at the paper trail of the most forbidden machines in Detroit. If you go to a Chevrolet dealer today, they'll tell you a 1983 Corvette doesn't exist. But for the engineers at Bowling Green, 1983 wasn't a gap, it was a nightmare. Chevrolet had built 43 prototypes. These weren't just test mules, they were the future of GM. But there was a problem. The car wasn't ready. The new uniframe chassis was suffering from massive torsional flex, causing the removable targa tops to fly off and windshields to shatter under stress. On top of that, the 83 models failed California's strict emission certification. GM leadership was embarrassed. To protect the brand, they issued a total deletion order. The directive was clear. Every single 1983 Corvette was to be fed into the scrap metal shredder at the St. Louis plant or crushed on site at Bowling Green. We have photos of 42 of these cars being destroyed, but serial number 0001, finished in a striking white with a blue cloth interior, managed to pull off a vanishing act. It wasn't a glitch in the paperwork, it was a conspiracy. A group of assembly workers and a few sympathetic managers, led by Ralph Kramer and Jerry Burton, realized that if they destroyed number 0001, they'd lose the master template for the C4 generation. They hid the car in the back of the plant's paint shop, literally burying it under old shipping crates and dirty tarps. When auditors came by, the car was listed on the books as testing equipment number 0001 rather than a vehicle. It lived in the shadows for years, surviving solely because a few workers cared more about history than corporate policy. Today, it still wears its original 1983 spec digital dashboard, a display so notoriously buggy it almost killed the project, and its original Goodyear Gatorback tires. It remains the only physical proof of a ghost year that Detroit tried to scrub from the records. In 1964, Ford hired Dearborn Steel Tubing to build a Corvette killer. The result was Shorty, a Mustang with a hand-fabricated fiberglass body and a wheelbase shortened by exactly 16 inches. Under the hood was an experimental bored-out 260 cubic inch V8, pushed to 302 cubic inches years before the 302 was a production standard. When the promotional tour ended, Ford ordered the car destroyed, but the designer, Vince Gardner, couldn't watch his child die. He literally stole the car from a Ford-rented warehouse. He hid it in a storage locker in Connecticut and reported it stolen to the police. The insurance company Aetna paid Ford for the loss, and legally, Ford stopped looking. Gardner kept his fugitive in the dark for years. When it was finally found after he stopped paying rent, Aetna, who now legally owned the Ghost, sold it to one of their own executives for a pittance. It remained in a private garage for 47 years, a survivor of a literal heist. Our third fugitive was hidden not in a warehouse, but behind a wall of cinder blocks. In 1970, Plymouth launched the Rapid Transit System Caravan, a group of radical one-of-one custom show cars meant to tour the country. While the other caravan cars were tracked or preserved, the Roadrunner vanished. This wasn't just any Plymouth. It featured a hand-formed steel nose extension, not fiberglass, housing 4 headlights from a Chrysler 300 and a radical triple-stack taillight configuration. When the tour ended, the car disappeared into the shadows of Detroit. The forensic trail went cold for nearly 50 years. It turns out the car had been tucked away in a private garage in a high-crime area of the city. The owner was so paranoid about its experimental status and the value of its one-of-one parts that he literally built a false wall to hide it. It was eventually tracked down by the late Steven Giuliano, the world's leading Mopar detective. When it finally emerged in 2019, it was a time capsule with only 1,300 original miles. It escaped the factory scrap directive by simply ceasing to exist to the outside world for half a century. Chrysler famously crushed 46 of the 55 turbine cars to avoid paying millions in import duties on the Italian-made Gaia bodies. They even filmed the destruction to satisfy the government, but chassis number 51 escaped the jaws. While most survivors went to museums, they remained on corporate leash, meaning Chrysler kept the titles and could recall them for crushing at any time. But a private collector named Frank Kleps managed to acquire chassis number 51 through a complex legal loophole. To keep it, he had to sign a 20-page indemnity contract promising the car would never be driven on public roads. He had to source JP4 jet fuel from local airports because 1960s leaded gasoline would clog the engine's A831 regenerators, the high-tech heat exchangers that kept the exhaust from melting the asphalt. He kept the car's operational status a secret for decades to avoid corporate repossession. The Ultimate Fugitive isn't a prototype, but a production car that was hidden to prevent illegal seizure. In 1971, Plymouth built only 11 Hemi Cuda Convertibles. One of them was finished in Winchester Gray, the only one in existence. In the late 70s, the owner, Russell Myers, was facing a massive legal battle and knew his assets would be seized. Instead of surrendering the car, he used a flatbed crane to hoist the Cuda into the back of a gutted Greyhound school bus on a field in Illinois. He welded the bus doors shut from the inside and exited through a trapdoor in the floor. For 20 years, the most valuable muscle car in the world was missing. It sat in that bus tomb while collectors offered millions for its location. When it finally emerged, it was sold for over $2 million. It survived because one man decided that if he couldn't have it, the world couldn't see it. We are pushing for 10,000 subscribers so we can go find the next false wall. Hit subscribe and tell me, which fugitive would you have stolen? I'm reading every comment. I'll see you in the next investigation.